Well, a very good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world. Welcome to or welcome back to the channel, and thank you very much for being part of my journey. Um, I'm going to have a bit of a waffle today on the welcome slide, and that's normal for me if you're new to the channel. I do have little tangents that I go down, and so what I want to draw to your attention is that if you're new to the channel, I put timing markers in the description of the videos that I load, and this is because I realise time is a premium for everybody. They can't just sit around all day listening to me, especially if the videos go long. But fair warning, if you're a returning visitor to the channel, today I'm actually going to be sharing with you an experience that I had this week, and I'm going to introduce it now, so you might actually before I go further in the video, just letting you know, this is I consider to be one of those profound spiritual experiences that have a certain level of miracle associated with them. So I'll be talking about that today. Before I do, though, just the reminder, yes, there is the timing chapters. If you're new to the channel, you may not be aware of who and what I am and how I operate. Now, the bottom line is, excuse me as I swallow, just a little story here. I started my pathway basically doing what I do, probably, consciously a couple of decades ago. I started delivering services to people via tarot healing, that kind of thing. And I realized fairly quickly that I didn't feel equipped to actually manage some of the stories that people were telling me. And, beautifully, I would deliver a service, and you never know, honestly, when you are giving your information or your service to people. I'm talking about psychic services or communication. I never know whether or not it's 100% unless I actually get feedback from the person. But I never ask for it. I figure if they want to tell me, they'll tell me. And invariably, excuse me while I cough, invariably at the end of the readings, people would turn around and say to me, I could tell that you didn't understand what you were saying to me, but I knew what you were meaning and what you were referring to. And then they would actually give me their personal stories. And some of those stories were bigger than Ben-Hur, with people having some real extreme life challenges, shall we say. And I always appreciated the disclosures that people made to me. But after they would leave, I would actually not feel sad and bad, all right? I would feel inadequate, because I didn't feel that I had the skills to be able to help them, and I would like to be able to help them. So that prompted me to actually go and do my social work degree, and obviously I got that. And in the process, I also studied up, if you like, on mental health, as far as treatments and plannings and, just basically being able to give advice and strategy to people when they identified to me certain things like they might have anxiety. So it wasn't just about giving them a reading about, oh, you've got nothing to worry about in the future. It would be like, okay, how are you going to manage your anxiety going forward? And I would be able to give them the spiritual information as well as some real practical tips. And that's what I have always aimed to do. So that's just a bit of background about who and what I am. The other thing is a reminder that my name of Anah is actually what they call a feather name. And this is because I've been working on books for years where I'm actually compiling them, but I never get to the point of completing them and publishing them for some reason. But I aim to change that. That's one of my goals over the next 12 months, to actually complete some of these ready for publication. But the other thing I want to point out is when people ask me, why do you use the name Anah and not your personal name? It's not just about protecting my identity. That's a big part of it. I like my privacy, and having this veil, shall we say, allows me to be more honest and transparent about what I say and what I do. But the other thing is too that I have children, I have family members, extended family, and my family is probably not a lot different from other people's. There's levels of dysfunction in it, and family members have got really heightened sensitivity in some areas. And if I was to disclose my name, it would actually be fairly easy for some people to pinpoint who it is that I'm referring to when I have conversations like what I'm going to do today. I'm going to be talking about a very personal experience that happened this week. And at the same time, by having this feather name, it protects the identity of my family members. But before I get into the story, let's take a look at, I'm going to give you a reminder. I'm currently in the process of expanding, if you like, my offline social network as well. And so I've organised a local community gathering that's going to be held on the 12th of March. Now, if you're local to Perth, it's going to be at the Mount Lawley. Well, actually, it's not called Mount Lawley, it's the Beaufort Street Community Centre. And what I'm doing is I'm organising a space and place for people to get together, bring along a crystal, bring along tarot cards, and we just have a play, just some fun. Okay, it's not going to be super intensive, it's not a workshop, it's a social gathering, because I find historically a lot of my growth has occurred just through casual interactions with other people and the old, what we say, have a chat. So the aim is to have a chat, and in preparation for this I've actually been doing a lot of buying as well. I don't know why. Sometimes I get a bit carried away with myself. But anyway, I have bought a number of different tarot and oracle decks for us to have a look at. I've also been buying crystals just in case people don't have crystals themselves. They can have a look at and play with mine on the night. Of course, they're not for giveaway, they're not freebies. But I do plan to have some other stuff there that might be of interest to people that they'll enjoy. But either way, if you're interested in coming, I've got limited numbers. There's number restrictions. You need to go to Eventbrite and check out the events that are on there. Find me on there, and it says purchase a ticket. The prompt is you've got to purchase one, but the reality is you don't pay for it. So you do purchase a free ticket, and that way I can keep track of numbers. I have organised a wait list for it, and if you can't make it to this one, or you want to be able to do it, but Wednesday night's not good for you, because I've got a couple of people that have said to me they would really like to come, but they can't do a Wednesday night. Let me know, because I might be able to change it to a new night or get an extra night happening. But the bottom line is, yes, you are most welcome to join me and others that will be there. And what was the other thing I was going to say? There was something there on the tip of my tongue. Oh, I'm going to have them monthly, okay? So I've booked the room for the next 6 months, at least to give it a trial and see what happens. So, okay, let's talk about that personal story that, I'm glad that I've got my feather name for, because this is referring to a situation that occurred with a family member. Now, as I say, it would appear as a miracle to people because it involves what we call angelic blessings. And of course, this is how I interpret it, but I'm going to leave you to make your own mind up, right? Now, what happened was basically there was this problem involving a family member. Oh dear, how can I go into this? So obviously it's one of my children who went overseas. And the last time the family member went overseas, they actually contracted whatever, and they ended up in hospital for about 10 days. So it was quite worrying, okay, for me while this was being sorted out, because while they were in the hospital, it was actually, oh goodness me, was it Malaysia? I think it was Malaysia or Vietnam. They'd been to both places. It was a little stressful, shall we say. And so this time around when he went overseas, so I've just told you, this is why I've got to keep my identity private. I've only got one son, okay? So this time when he went overseas, I spoke to him before he left, and he was very forthcoming. It was a great conversation. I got an idea of what he plans to do. I don't expect this, by the way, because I've got to point out that my son is an adult, well and truly an adult, capable of making his own decisions. But it's actually really nice, as most of us that are mothers or fathers will know, when your adult child comes up and just volunteers information. It's a very casual relationship, but for me with my son, he's an interesting character, and so he's not always forthcoming, is where I will say. Sometimes he can basically, I might not hear from him for a while, and I don't normally worry, shall we say, but in this instance, because of the previous, so where I'm going with this is I'm not a smother mother with him. He's an adult, I reiterate. But this time when he went overseas, I didn't hear from him, which took me by surprise a little bit, but I didn't worry about it. I started to worry when he got home and I hadn't heard back from him. And I was like, oh, that's unusual. I would have thought that he would have given me a call. I knew that the reason he didn't call me while he was away this time was something to do with telephones. He'd said something about he'd changed his plan and it would cost him too much money to make calls. so he was actually very upfront and considerate about a lot of things before he took off. But so then you can imagine there's no contact at all while he's away. And then when he's supposed to return, I've still got no contact. I didn't initially start worrying, but after him, I believed that he should have been home for a couple of days, and I would have expected at least an SMS. Wrong expectation. Don't expect anything. I would have expected, and I did expect, that I would get an SMS or something saying, "Hey, I'm home. I'll give you a call sometime." That would have been fairly normal for him. However, in this particular instance, he didn't. So I started to worry. What if all those what ifs came in? What if he's been hurt? What if he's sick? What if he's in hospital? What if he's been found in the street and he didn't have his ID on him? What if he inadvertently broke a law? The area that he's been to this particular time, my uncle actually got arrested in many years ago and got imprisoned. It sounds terrible. All it was actually he'd gone over there for work. So my uncle's story is he'd gone over there for work, and the employer had said they'd taken care of the visas. Now, working in this particular area without a visa is a major taboo. Okay, certainly was back in about the 80s, I think, was when my uncle was arrested. Anyway, he was at work and the police turned up, arrested him, took him away and imprisoned him. And it was an extremely stressful time for him. Obviously, my uncle refuses to go back to that country. He's never been back since. He's so scarred by it. So then, of course, I'm starting to worry about my son. What if he's been arrested? What if something has happened? Really worrying. So when it comes to a problem, right, we've got to find out exactly what the problem is and nail it. Okay, so in this instance, I contemplated and I was able to establish, and I think most people would be able to establish pretty well immediately what the problem was for me and how I could navigate it. Within the context of my son being overseas. And it was actually communication breakdown, because all I needed from him was some kind of reassurance that he was okay, that he was back in the country. I didn't need a half-hour phone call. I didn't need an hour-long phone call. I just needed some kind of contact or reaching out. So that's where, you start to make the difference. Now, I want to explain this. So I know who the angel of communication, that role is. It's an angel called Onkanon. But, as usual, it doesn't matter who and what we are. We tend to, I think, end up remembering that we can actually call on the angels and how to do it quite well into this journey of worry, shall we say. So, don't forget, before this, I went through a process as I was worrying, of throwing it out of the universe, please, can you get him to contact me or whatever? And I didn't feel like anything was happening, I've got to be honest. And that didn't help me to relax, I might add. Because I was sort of thinking to myself, oh, do I need to contact the embassy? Maybe he's not back. There's a whole heap of things that I could do if I knew something was wrong. Okay, but not knowing what the problem was means that you don't know what actions to take. So in this particular instance, I recognised that to actually call the embassy or to call his workplace or people that live close to him would actually potentially make me look like a lunatic, to be honest, and a smother mother. Whereas all I actually really needed was to have this communication come to me from him or somebody else, somebody close to him that can just say, hey, he's home. So as I said, I'd been throwing it out there and just sort of over the shoulder, I'd think of him, I'd start to worry, and then go hand it to the angels will take care of it, and mosey on. And then I recognised that this worry was escalating, and if I didn't get it addressed and didn't get a communication fairly quickly, then things were going to start to go haywire in my world, shall we say. So what I did, I had a recognition that I was doing things wrong, and this is why I hadn't received the confirmation that I was looking for. Now, fortunately, I actually had experience of invoking Onkanon years ago through a couple of different crises, and I found that she was very quick to respond in the past. I would get the communication that I needed usually, gosh gee, within about half an hour. There wasn't a long wait before me actually putting out the invocation and getting the response that I was looking for. And the response can be good or bad. I just want to know what I'm dealing with. So these are uncertain times, shall we say. And so, this is where I started thinking to myself, well, what am I doing wrong? Why isn't she acting this time? It's on her. This is just how we act as humans. Why is she not acting? Not, what can I do better, or what am I doing wrong? I was not invoking her. Okay, throwing a thought over your shoulder, can you please intervene, is not an invocation. Okay, it's kind of a plea. And this is not how we interact with the angels when we're actually trying to get things done or trying to get a result. So then I remembered what I did historically, and I repeated it on this particular day. And that was, I actually, when we talk about creating a space, it doesn't mean that you've got to go and vacuum your dining room, that you've got to make everything spiffy and it's this great big ceremony of invocation. You don't have to do that, but you do have to create the space, and creating the space is an internal thing. And for me, I went outside because I love that space. It's very relaxing. It's got the birds. If you've watched my other videos, you'll know that I like the birds. So I've gone and sat outside, created that space around me away from the telephone, so I'm not going to be interrupted. It doesn't have to take a long time. Then I've done the hands up in the air, and I've put the focus of intention. I've done the centering, I've done the sacred breath, and I'm getting in there and I outline my intention. I explained the scenario. I probably did it not as I usually would have, to be honest, because it's been a while since I've done it. But what I did was basically I understood that I was becoming concerned. My gut instinct was that he was fine, it was okay, he was just busy with his life, and this is why he hadn't contacted me. I understood all of that, but I also understood that my worry was escalating, and that if I didn't get it in check, then it would impact on my capacity to follow through with my own tasks and purpose. So I basically asked if it was appropriate, under divine grace, in the divine way, that I received some form of communication from him to let me know that he was okay, so that I could stop worrying. That whole under grace and in the divine way. So I've put that out there, and then I've done the invocation. I've invoked for Onkanon to basically communicate with my son to get me that confirmation that I needed. And then I just sat in that space, focusing on the heart chakra, the crown being open to receive and sending out love. This is what I did. Just so you know, I'm just putting this down how it works for me, and it's going to be different for other people. But when we start doing this energy and the sending, you start to feel a buzz in the middle of the chest area when you're sending out heart energy. So for me, I sat with it while I got a bit of a buzz there, if you like, and I held that position probably, I don't know if I was to take a guess, because obviously you're not timing it, probably for about 5 minutes. I just sat on the couch and did the sending, and then I got up when it felt like the right time to get up, which was about 5 minutes. It was no longer than 5 minutes. I've got up, I've wiped my hands, stood up. Thank you very much to Onkanon. Thank you to the universe. And basically it happened. My response came that quickly. I don't think I even had time to get back in the door before my phone was going off with an SMS. And I've got to laugh. You've got to have a sense of humour. It was this, what? I am trying to sleep. I am on night shift. Thank you very much. So I sent him a message saying thank you and sorry for interrupting him. But that's exactly how it works. If you've ever wondered, this is how it works. It comes to you. You've got to be open to receive the information. With that, I knew my other non-fears, my practical, logical mind was confirmed, which was that he'd left things fine when he came back into the country and obviously went straight to work. He works on a mine site, and that he was probably doing night shift, and that this may have been why I hadn't heard from him. So, at this point in time, while I'm talking about me and what happened the other day and how we managed it, and yeah, I know he's fine now. He's obviously busy and happy and everything's going dandy, and I'll get a phone call from him when he's ready. But I'm interested in hearing your stories as well, of when you may have attempted to invoke angels or the divine or the celestial beings or whatever you like to call it as part of resolving problems in your life so that you can remain peaceful and happy. Let me know, leave a comment. And if you've got questions about what I did and how I did it, feel free to ask, if you think I need to expand on something. So just a reminder here for you people, and just to summarise, okay, I actually been calling and trying to get him to contact me, if you like, to connect with him telepathically, pretty close to a week before I finally asked for an angelic intervention. And throughout that process, I questioned whether or not I was being punished, or whatever. But of course, just remember this: Creator doesn't punish people for being loving and caring. It just doesn't happen like that. And this is the same with the angels. So, no, I was not being punished. The problem lay with me. It was not with the fact that I was not getting divine support, or that the divine wasn't there ready to support me. The moment I asked, I got it. I just wasn't asking the right way. I was not focusing my intention correctly, or outlining clearly what it was that I would like to see happen. And there's a couple of things in the way that I put this out there, and I hope you picked up on it. One, I did not want to intrude or violate his freedom of choice or free will. That would be intrusive, and as far as I understand, that brings negative karma to a person. And then the other one is, just focusing the intent, having that clear conversation. Be clear. If you want help, you've got to be clear about what it is that you're trying to achieve and what outcome. And this is why actually practicing things like connecting with your guides and getting yes, no answers is really beneficial. It helps you to establish how to clearly request as well for assistance and support from the divine. Anyway, moving on, because this is going to be a long video. So another reminder as well before I do the channel update, which is that yes, I am doing professional readings from home at the moment, and yes, this is part of motivating me to stock up on my crystals, because I will often prescribe crystals for people in the course of delivering a service. Especially if they've got things like anxiety, depression, all of that kind of stuff, and stress. I habitually, though, I've got to watch myself. I went out for a cuppa the other day with somebody who, in fact, has, I would say, she hasn't told me, I think it's an extreme anxiety panic disorder, probably to the point of phobia. But either way, I didn't have the crystals that I would use for that, which incidentally, just so you know, would be green fluorite, would be right up there as one of them. But anyway, I took along a little piece of selenite and kyanite and just gifted that to her, because I thought, well, that's going to help calm and soothe her. Speaking of crystals, okay, obviously I've got the crystal playlist happening, and I will update you about that shortly. But speaking of crystals and the fact that I actually am stocking up on them because I make prescriptions and that kind of thing, I've started buying again, and you will be aware of that if you've watched the video. So I'm increasing my collection, shall we say, at home, and I must admit that the reading room's actually looking lovely. It's getting more and more energy happening with it and that kind of thing. I might actually start putting up photos of the crystals as they arrive, because I got delivered this week some really just some small points of labradorite, but they were a really good price, and that's the idea for me, to be able to pass those savings along. But just to make the point of, buying crystals is not without stress, because there are so many sharks out there selling, and it's nerve-wracking when you're importing or buying them from overseas and bringing them into the country. And so I've had an experience this week where I have been so stressed out because I'm buying selenite, and because I'm going to a wholesaler, it means that I've got to buy bulk to be able to get these good prices. And I don't think that's going to be a problem, because everybody loves selenite. You can use it in so many ways. And anyway, so I've ordered a couple of eggs and that kind of stuff, and oh gosh, gee, the stress, because this guy, it turns out, he's got poor English. He's just not particularly professional by Western standards, and I started thinking I was scammed. So it's really thrown me off this week, but such is life. Life goes on. I'm confident now that I'll be able to get that consignment probably next week, I'd like to think. But what I'm getting actually is from him is what they call the charging rod. So it's like having a ruler. Sometimes they call it a ruler. And basically it's long enough for you to put your tumbled stones on to just charge and purify them of any negativity, get them back to that perfect space. But the other thing is too, people probably don't realise that with selenite, and this is what I aim to address, is that it's multi-purpose, and it's not just about charging your crystals. It actually purifies the air because it's a purifier, okay? If you hold it, it purifies your auric body and your chakras. If you've got it in your environment, it's going to purify the energy of the air, the whole environment, your home, your office space, whatever. It purifies. So I don't think you can have too much selenite, shall we say. And anyway, I've distracted myself. I was going to say, this is the stress that you get when you buy overseas, and when you buy online. And there's risk, okay? There's always risk. So just to put things into perspective, the labradorite that I got, while I'm not unhappy with, was nothing like the photograph. In the photograph, it looked A grade. What has arrived is actually 3rd grade. I'll still be able to sell it because it's got such a good price on it, okay? I will recoup what I've spent on it. It's not a total waste, but in many ways it's a disappointment as far as quality goes. You'd like to get what the photos, if it, that it looks like the photos. To be more clear, what I've actually bought, I've seen in the rough in the past. It's where one side is polished and it's got that beautiful rainbow colour, and the back of the rock was natural texture. This is what I had years ago, and we would call that labradorite single-faceted rough, I think is what it used to be called. Well, these labradorite obelisks that I bought, I'm looking at them thinking they're single-faceted. They've only got all their colour on one side, and the rest of it basically shouldn't have been polished because it's just grey. It's just not particularly flash, but it's going to work, okay? It will work as labradorite. So yeah, probably better to let to buy local is what I'm going back to. Buy local and let the importers carry the risk, okay? But there is a problem. I was talking to a lady in Sydney last night who sells crystals as well, and she was saying to me that she's observed that the wholesalers are actually selling product at retail price, and this is why it's becoming so expensive to buy your crystals actually in at, say, little crystal shops. The wholesalers are being greedy, and there's a lot of risk with importing. So as far as playlist updates go and the videos that I've published, I have loaded this week the Desert Rose. Was that this week? Yes, it was. You saw it get published this week. Now, I actually was hoping to hold off to put this one up, but life gets in the way sometimes. And the reason I was hoping to hold off is because I've actually got some coming in. Hopefully this week I've actually bought some, because it is such a brilliant crystal. When you look at the properties of it, which of course you see this in the full video, I looked at it and I thought, I don't know how any of us can get by without a little piece of Desert Rose. And as I say, when you're buying from the wholesalers, this is what I'm finding to be the best way to get competitive prices so that I can pass those savings along to people. Anyway, where I was going with this is I've got to buy by the kilo. So I'm going to have a lot of Desert Rose here, but I definitely want some for myself as well. And I would have liked to have revisited it before I loaded the video, but I may just have to update my experience of Desert Rose on a yarning. But anyway, let me know if you've used Desert Rose and how that worked for you. Unakite, oh my goodness me, what a powerful crystal this one is. That one has been loaded this week as well, so you can see that, you can access that. You can always watch the shorts and get a bit of an introduction. Obviously I can't make huge claims when it comes to crystals, and I've got to try and be mindful, not too outlandish. We don't want to see the videos get cancelled. So you've got to if you've got questions, ask me, does it work for X or Y? And I will come back and say to you quite honestly, well, my understanding is that it may benefit, okay? It might have been said to me that people have found it beneficial to them for X, Y, and Z. But there is a lot of metaphysical attributes to Unakite that makes it very special. Next week, you can expect to see the video of Azurite loaded or published, where you can watch it or hear it or whatever. But that'll be on Tuesday. I've almost completed it. I'm going to be doing the audio in a moment. I've been a bit delayed this week, as said. I may, though, change out this image, because as I look at this image here, I'm thinking it looks a bit grotty and grungy, but I may also decide to keep it there, because the bottom line is, when we look at crystals, it doesn't matter how pretty they are, when they're in the rough state, they usually are a bit on the grungy side, and that grungy stuff is actually, I like them a bit grungy. Next week you can and the video Malachite will go up on the Thursday. And there's a logic and rationale for me putting up Azurite and Malachite in the same week. And this is because quite often you'll find crystals that have got a mix of Azurite and Malachite within them. So they carry both the properties. They're actually very beautiful, but I'll find some photos and I'll put that up. The other interesting thing is, and I wish I'd thought about it when I did the chrysocolla video, is sometimes you get Malachite mixed with chrysocolla, and in those instances, it will carry the benefits of the chrysocolla and the Malachite. And if I am correct, there's another crystal that is referred to as either Shatterkite. I don't think it is that one. I think it's Shakatite, actually. And I'd have to go and refresh my memory, but it's got 3 crystals in it. So I think it's got the chrysocolla, the Malachite, and the Azurite. But I'll check into that before I load the video anyway. So as for the tarot offer, look, that's a bit delayed. I haven't been in the right space for it this week. I've been obviously a little bit concerned. That was sorted out fairly early in the piece, but then I've actually been really distracted by what's happening with this overseas supplier who has been giving me excuse after excuse. Well, that is now resolved. I spoke to somebody here in Australia that apparently buys from them because actually quite an interesting story. The guy was in India. If you watched last week's video, you will see that I expressed my concerns about, and I was blatant with it, about Indian suppliers. Now, before anybody turns around and says I'm being racist there, I've actually got an Indian friend, and I was speaking with her about my concerns with this particular supplier, and she was like, oh no. She was like, the thing is, you've got 50% good and 50% bad, but if they're bad, they're really bad. And this is a difficulty for us that are not in India, trying to hold trust and hold faith with people. Anyway, where I'm going with this is I was very distracted, largely because his English was poor. I'm reassured now because in his desperation to actually communicate with me, God bless, he gave me the phone number of an Australian supplier in Sydney. I think I'm repeating myself here. But anyway, I spoke to her last night and she explained to me how he operates, but that he is legitimate and he's very sincere and very sweet. I said, it doesn't come across to me that way on this side of the world. But anyway, I'm reassured now, but I've been very distracted, so no, I haven't been really doing readings this week. We're almost at the end of this video, and thank goodness for that, we all say. I'm saying thank goodness actually because I just checked the temperature in between slides and it's only 24 degrees, but it's overcast and it's so humid and it definitely feels hotter. So for me, it's like, oh, I just need to get up and go and walk and put the air conditioner on. But reminder, anyway, before I close out for today, is that yes, I've got a number of playlists. If you're new to the channel, go and have a look around, check things out. Certainly I recommend getting a really deep understanding of numerology because it's so revealing about spiritual paths and our destiny and that kind of thing. Universal law, just to recap there, I struggled with the interpretation of some of them. That's because I'm a human being and I believe a lot of people will struggle with it. But what I think is, at the very least, even if we don't agree with some of these things that are put up, because they're so complex, some of them, there will be other aspects that we do look at and think that feels right to me, that resonates with me. The other ones that don't resonate with me right now, they might resonate in the future, but they certainly offer thought or opportunity for thought and contemplation, like, unpack what we think and feel about some of these statements, if you say. And even if it's questioning, where did they get this information from? How do they know? How did this come through? Obviously there's no science to support them, because these are spiritual law, universal laws. These are not obviously earth-based laws, but you'll know once you go and have a look at them, because there's 105 of them. Okay. Then of course I've got to recommend the angels. I love the angels. There's an angelic playlist. Anyway, I'll let you go and have a look through that at your leisure. And I am going to depart from the computer right now, look at the air conditioning, look at sorting out my little Toby boy who's been such a good boy today. And I'm going to say thank you very much for being part of my journey. Do have a wonderful, blessed day, blessed week. Take care. Catch you on the next video. Oh, and don't forget to ask questions. Say g'day if nothing else. All right. Take care. Bye-bye for now.